We're back, baby. Horns Up, Talking Texas podcast. Fisher to Southwest DJ, Nikki Snacks Crider. We have Laci Michele joining us today from Laced Up Podcast, High Top Sport, Texas, boots on the ground in Austin. Laci, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys so much for having me on. I'm so excited to be here with you guys and to sit and talk some Texas football because we got a lot to talk about. We've been so I'm excited.
We do have a ton to talk about today, and Laci, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to you, Nick, and then Toss, and I'll close us out. Before we get into the quarterbacks, before we get into Sark, the number one ranking, this is just something that crossed my mind this morning. There's so many great players, and there's still so many players we haven't really heard enough of in the first 3 games of the season. Who's one player that you've been most impressed with, and maybe one player that you want to see more out of as the weeks come on?
So honestly, one of the words. One of the players that I've been most impressed with, honestly, is Matthew Golden. I've loved what he has been able to bring to the offense. I feel like he has been a big staple for Quinn Ewers. 2 touchdowns versus Michigan. He has been a very solid target for Quinn, and I think that a lot of us expected that, with his experience and how well he performed at Houston. But I think it's just different being able to see how he fits into the offense. And I've been really, really impressed with what I've seen from him. Honestly, another guy that I want to see more of is Jonte Cook. We saw more of him versus UTSA. He had 2 touchdowns versus UTSA. But I feel like we'll see a little bit more of him with Arch. I feel like him and Arch are the ones that kind of have that real deep connection. Not that him and Quinn don't, but I just feel like that connection between Arch and Jonte is really, really, really solid. And with Arch possibly starting the next couple of games, we know he's starting the next game, but with Arch getting his time, I'm really excited to see more of Jonte Cook on the field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nick, what about you, man?
Gunnar Helm, man. I think he's been the guy that's really surprised a lot of Horns fans. Not someone that was talked about that much in the offseason. Obviously, we know what he is capable of, and we've seen him in the past couple of years, but using that big body and getting open and having yards after a catch as well, being someone super reliable for our quarterbacks where, he's a good safety valve who might be able to work his way up into, a day 2 pick in the NFL draft. We'll see what happens, as the season goes on, but he's starting to look like a true tight end 1 in college football, and he's impressed me. On the flip side, I'd like to see more of Amari Niblack. He's a guy that we all expected to get a lot of run and maybe even be tight end 1 heading into the season, transferring out of Alabama. Everyone that we've talked to who covered the ACC says that this guy is an animal and that he, makes defenders look silly, and he's a human highlight reel. And we just really have not seen enough run out of him to really even get that type of footage for us. So would love to see some more, maybe 2 tight end packages or some rotations to see him get involved a little bit more and, get him ready for SEC play.
Mm-hmm. Nice. T-Dot?
Yeah, I would just say on the Gunner part, like, we think we know all of our players, but I didn't know he had a 40 plus yard hurdle in him. I didn't know he had that level of athleticism that he could bring to the table. I knew he had great hands. I knew he could block. I knew he was a huge body that could work well in our run game. But I love when our players, they add something new in the offseason. They bring it to the current season that we're in, and they kind of impress us even more. So I think that was a great
on that hurdle all offseason.
Well, he's certainly working in the weight room and getting stronger and doing the squats to build the jumping muscles and whatnot.
He's been doing box jumps all off season.
We'll say that he has. Yeah. I think the guy that's really impressed me thus far, I watched all of his high school highlight tape coming into the season. He's a true freshman, and Ryan Wingo, but in thinking that he was going to have an impact and thinking that he might get an opportunity to shine, but he has really made the most of those moments. And we can't keep him off the field. And I think exactly what you're talking about, Laci, with Jonte Cook and his established rapport with Arch Manning. It seems like Arch has a good rapport with Ryan Wingo too, which is great to see, not only for this year, for this upcoming game against Louisiana Lafayette, but also next year when Arch is the quarterback for the Texas Longhorns full-time. And Ryan Wingo will be going into his sophomore season as one of the best receivers in the country. So he's really, really impressed me through 3 games. A guy that I would like to make a little bit more noise is Trey Moore. He was mentioned against UTSA, but he was really only mentioned because he was a former UTSA player. He's played good assignment football. He's plugging run gaps. Like, he's there, he's doing his job. But I think Longhorn fans thought that he was going to be kind of an impact player and make a lot of plays, get to the quarterback, wreak havoc in the backfield. And I think I would love to see him kind of take his game forward another level against Lafayette and then hopefully against Mississippi State. We're going to need a good, solid pass rush against SEC opponents. And so I think that starts a lot with a guy that transferred who's a veteran, played a lot of college football, and Trey Moore.
Yeah, I mean, you stole mine. I think I would love to see more of Trey Moore. I think he's a guy, double-digit sacks at UTSA. Still, I know we romped them, but they were still a Division I program. Nick, you mentioned in previous shows they sent Marcus Davenport to the NFL, so they've sent guys to the NFL from their own program, let alone having transferred to other places. So seeing more of him, no pun intended, I'm completely aligned with you. We've seen Colin Simmons start to get his. Obviously, Anthony Hill has been a ball hawk, nose to the ball all season long so far, leading us in tackles almost every single game, if not every game. So I would love to see Trey Moore get involved and get his. One guy I have to be pretty blown away by is Mr. Banks, man. I mean, Calvin Banks is rated almost a 90 in pass block. We're passing on PFF, and we're passing primarily almost every single time, at least when we're coming out the gate now. So it's a very pass happy offense, and to see Calvin Banks come in there and be almost a 90 grade through 3 games, especially against a really tough Michigan defense, is pretty impressive. And seeing a lot of mock drafts, looks like the Panthers once again will at least own the first overall pick, whether it goes to them or not. Looking like it will be in 2025, and assuming the Bryce Young experiment is not over, he could be in line to be the first overall pick. So much has been talked about Sanders, Beck. We've spoken about Ewers. Can he be the first overall pick? And it's been so quarterback heavy. But if Calvin Banks continues to prove that he is the best offensive lineman in this draft class and in the nation, then he has a really good chance of being that first overall pick. And he's been as advertised thus far. Is it crazy to you guys?
That team would just be building a roster full of Longhorns, right?
Literally. I was just going to say
Brooks, that. They've got JT Sanders there, adding Banks, which I would be excited about and have to root for the Panthers, but I'm also a little trepidatious about, because I just don't love their owner and that front office and what they're doing. So, that's a great call out, Josh, because Banks is flying up boards.
Can I get one more, like, while everybody was talking, because both of my guys were offensive. So can I just say one more, because Andrew Makuba has been insane. Like, we've seen glimpses of him at Clemson. We've seen the physicality and everything that he is capable of at Clemson. He struggled with some injuries, but coming to Austin, he's just been a heat-seeking missile. He's everywhere on that back end, whether it's in coverage, whether it's coming up and plugging a gap. He is everywhere. He's causing disruption. He's causing havoc for quarterbacks. And I don't know about y'all, but I expected to see an uptick on our back end, but Andrew Makuba has just really, really impressed me.
I agree. Yeah. I think that's a great call. But I mean, we've always had talented safeties, but I feel like it's been a long time since we've had kind of like a heat-seeking missile like he has been. Maybe since like the Aaron Williams, the Earl Thomas, those days, the Michael Huff days. I mean, we've had, the PJ Locks and Brandon Jones, but like, I think this guy kind of has a different gear where he is flying all over the field, able to play multiple coverages and, good with ball skills and, good tackler as well. So that's a great call out there. I've been super impressed with that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that's starting to get mentioned on the show, but I feel like at times almost is mentioned more when we text versus when we actually discuss. I think it's a really good. I mean, because there's so many guys, right? I think Jade's gotten a lot of our love thus far this season. But really, if you look at our snap count on defense, the top 4 guys that are on our snap count on defense, Barron leads the team with 138 snaps. Malik Muhammad 126, Taff 116, and then Makuba with 109. Like, our top 4 snap guys are defensive back, and like, considering how much depth we have in the defensive backfield, where we have the option to rotate fresh legs all the time, those guys have really found a groove as that, that core four in our defensive backfield. And it's such an interesting grouping too. Like Barron is like the veteran Texas guy. Muhammad is like the young, was the top recruit, one of the top recruits last year. He's coming in as a sophomore. Taft was a walk-on, and Makuba is the transfer. It's like a really interesting group that's kind of made us a serious threat.
Well, and they're all local. A lot of them are local. Yeah. A lot of them are local Centex Austin guys. And so it's like a whole Austin backfield. It's freaking cool.
And Barron and Taft apparently were instrumental in recruiting Makuba, telling him basically, hey man, come back to Austin, come play here one more year, let your parents drive and see you play every game. So that's cool that they got involved in the mix, recruiting another safety. But I was going to say as well that the fact that we're not mentioning DBs that much is a good sign. If DB is not mentioned, then he's doing his job, obviously, because that means he's doing his job, but also the defense is doing their job because the ball's not getting to the second level for the DBs to really have that much of an impact. So we're doing good in coverage and we're doing good on the front as well, where these guys don't even have to necessarily make a play. But you're right on all fronts there.
And I would say, Nick, to what you mentioned about it's been a long time since we've had a guy like this who's this versatile, who's this much of a ball hawk, who can make plays everywhere on the field. Part of that is because his job is a lot simpler when everyone else is taking care of their assignment, right? We're a really disciplined football team too. I've been really impressed with how our timing on hits on receivers has been nearly impeccable. We haven't had any, I don't think, early hits from the DB room, at least that I can remember in these first 3 games. But when you have Muhammad locking a guy down, I mean, it makes it a lot easier for Makuba to just do his job, right? And same thing with Jahdae Barron. So this whole room is working in tandem. And I think we've been saying it since we saw that first week, Laci, that we feel like it's probably our best room on the team, but that's saying something because our wide receiver room is incredible as well.
Insane.
And so is our quarterback room. So it's all great. It's all great.
That's one thing I've been
the number one team.
Yeah, for sure. That's one thing I've been impressed with thus far, just in general, is just the overall depth of the team. You're seeing so many guys produce. Sark said just yesterday that on Saturday, 77 out of 105 guys touched the field on Saturday. That's insane with how productive we are, with how efficient we are. There's not much drop off from the 1s, the 2s, the 3s. You don't see those off, you don't see those off drives or those off handoffs or anything like that where it's just miscommunication. And you can just tell that those guys just aren't used to working and communicating together on the back end. Whereas now I feel like we just have it together from top to bottom. It's just seems like we've been very seamless. We've been like a machine, an absolute machine for the first 3 weeks. So I've just been super, super impressed with our depth just overall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it goes to recruiting. It also, you talk about 1s and 2s and 3s, and it's that's a coaching thing too. Everyone getting reps with different teams, everyone getting reps with different plays. I mean, so much of Sark is he's such a great play caller. He's so good at designing plays, dialing up the right plays. And yes, he is a mastermind at that. And that is his quote unquote calling card. But the fact that Arch could come in, cold off the bench and execute the offense and pretty much start getting other guys involved. But the Quinn also has a similar hookup with these guys. There's not much. It's all bleeding together. There's not a clear distinction. Just to, throw it in there, we were talking about other college football games the other day, and LSU was losing to South Carolina. But when the second string quarterback came in, the wheels fell off for South Carolina, and they let that game at home unfortunately slip through their fingers, which would have been a massive win. They would have gone to 3-0, and they would have taken down LSU and headed into the top 25 rankings early into the season. But the fact that Quinn goes down, Arch comes in, and we're about to sit here and be like, yeah, it's Quinn's team, but Arch is really dope. He is we could win the whole thing. I feel almost as confident winning this thing from what I've seen, small sample size, and I'll get your guys' opinion. I don't feel that much less confident with Arch under center. I would have to see him in a big game like Michigan. I think that changes things. because Quinn has, been to Tuscaloosa. He's been to the playoffs. Like he's played in the OU game. Like he's had those big moments already. Arch really hasn't. He's had that. This is his biggest sample size, this UTSA, second and a half quarter on or whatever. But I feel almost as just as confident from what I've seen with Arch and his ability to command and get guys involved and his relationship with some of these receivers, especially the younger guys, which is scary. So do you guys feel a similar way? Laci, start with you, then Toss, and then Nick.
I agree with what you're saying. I feel like I don't have a significant drop in confidence with Arch versus Quinn. I just think that once SEC play starts, you're really going to start seeing a lot more of those redshirt freshman tendencies. Even in the UTSA game, there were certain times that his pocket awareness stunted some drives. There were times that he, would just make the bad decision. He would stare down receivers. He struggled through his progression sometimes. There's little things that you see from Arch that you don't see from year 3 Quinn. So it's not that I necessarily think that there is a significant drop off in production, or that I think that, the wheels fall. Obviously, the wheels don't fall off when Arch comes in. And I feel very confident that he can run this offense just the way that Sark wants him to. But I just think that further down the line, especially with a 12 team playoff, there's a possibility of playing 17 games this season. That's a lot for a redshirt freshman in his first season. And I just think that our biggest advantage in most of these games are the fact that we've had the same head coach and the same quarterback for the past 3 seasons. And with putting Arch in, you kind of take away that advantage. I understand the ceiling may be a little bit higher and the offense may be a little bit more sexy, but at the same time, I feel like later on down the line in the games where, the depth may be struggling a little bit more, it's SEC play. We don't know, like a lot can happen in the next few weeks. So I just feel like that experience is really going to become very, very valuable later on in the season.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yeah, I think that's a fair criticism, and I share the same sentiment. If not, almost as you're talking and asking the question, Josh, like immediately drawing a line in the sand and saying we're not the same team. I personally, that's just the limitations that we have by not having Quinn as our signal caller. To me, are evident, yes, in watching Arch play, but more so evident in watching Quinn play in what he's done in the 2.5 games that he's played this season. Laci's absolutely right though. There are probably 2 bubble screens where Arch's internal clock wasn't fast enough, and if we're playing an SEC defense, not only is that pass not happening or not working, but it might be pick 6 going the other way, and then we're playing from behind. The luxury that Arch had was that Quinn had already scored we'd already scored 14 points in this game and had the significant edge for him coming in to kind of maintain that confidence that he seems to always have and that composure, which is something that I really love about Arch, especially how young he is. But we haven't seen him play from behind. We've seen Quinn come back in that Alabama game on the road. We were down in that game in the 3rd quarter, and he brought us back in that game. We mentioned it on a previous show. I think I said he has, up until this point, the most impressive victory in college football outside of the playoffs in the national championship last year against Alabama on the road. And so far, I would say the most impressive victory this season in college football. That will change because I don't think Michigan is a 10 out of 10 team. I think they're more like an 8 out of 10 team. But going in the big house and doing that on the road was really, really impressive. So I just think our offense, weirdly, even though Arch is way better with his legs and he's a bigger body, is more limited with him in there because he can't make the same layered throws right now, or at least I haven't seen that in the capacity that I've seen it with Quinn, who I think, and we've been talking about, has taken a step up from what we saw of Quinn last year. Like, I think this guy, to me, he's just doing things that I don't even think Sanders and Beck were doing. Now, are they asked to do the same things? Of course not. Different offensive, different schemes. Certainly with Sanders, a different offensive line. But I think we'll miss him when we play the 10 out of 10 opponents. And I think Arch is certainly capable of beating those 8 out of 10 opponents. I just don't know, with his lack of experience, if he can beat the Georgias, the Ohio States. We'll see what Oregon turns into if they really can turn things up. But the best of the best, which is who you have to beat in the college football playoff.
Or even going into A&M. I think that, even going into College Station, that's something new for Quinn too. So that's a game that neither of our quarterbacks really know yet. That's an environment, and we've seen what Quinn is able to do in big time environments. And I'm with you with the just hesitation that I'm not because we haven't seen it from Arch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Nick,
what's the original question again?
Are you feeling? How confident are you feeling with Arch comparatively to Quinn? Really, do you feel like there's that much of a drop off?
I mean, I don't know if it's a fair assessment to be like, oh, I'm more confident in this guy than that guy.
Maybe not more or less. Are you so much? Is it similar to the confidence you have? I think the
realistic answer is that he's young, he's a pup, and the footage that we've seen him play, the experience that he's gotten has been Colorado State and UTSA, and then presumably this week against Louisiana Monroe, which are 3 great games to build your confidence and to get you that in-game experience. But it's still not the SEC. It's still not a top 25 opponent. Really need to see how he plays in those type of games before we make that assessment. But also at the same time, I'm not sure if I even want to throw him in the fire there yet. I think these are great games to continue to have that even-killed confidence and build that experience. So it's good that he's gotten these 3 games under his belt, because you don't want him debuting, the full thing against OU. You know what I mean? So it's good that we're doing this now. But I think another thing has to be thrown out there. It's like, okay, how's he gonna play against an SC defense that has very diverse blitz schemes, right? And first round talent, coming off the edge, because we saw that the one flaw that we had in his game, in the UTSA game, was that when he got under pressure, his decision making wasn't quick enough. He took a sack, had some errant throws. So that's going to be on display tenfold when you're in the SEC against those type of edge rushers and against those defensive linemen. With Quinn, obviously, we just know the experience. I mean, he's been to the college football playoff. We were 1 play away from going to the national championship last year. And you mentioned the Alabama game, and you mentioned, the OU games, in seasons prior, and the Michigan game this year. Those are big games against NFL talent that ultimately is the game footage that NFL scouts use, because they're not looking at the UTSA game. I mean, maybe they look at a couple throws here and there, but they're looking at the big opponents in the big games, in the clutch moments, in the games that mean the most. And so Quinn has played those games, and having the luxury of having him for 3 years, you're right, Laci, that is our edge for sure. I mean, half the quarterbacks in the SEC are either first year guys, or some of them are even freshmen. We're looking
or
at
they have new coaches.
Exactly. And so this is a partnership here between Sark and Quinn that has developed over 3 years, that only they know each other that well. So I'm confident in Arch going forward, in the easy games for sure. I think he can still handle his business. I just think that he needs more time to see more game speed, because there's only so much you can do in practice and in scrimmaging and, in 2 days and scout teams. To be in the game at full speed that's the only way you're going to get that experience. And so, like I said, it's good that he's doing this now, but preferably we'd like to see Quinn healthy and let Arch play this week, go to the bye week. If he needs to, maybe play against Mississippi State, but Quinn needs to be ready to roll by OU.
Yeah, I think it just goes to show, weirdly, the maturation of our fan base and media of back in the day. I think people would have been like, oh, it's Arch's time, and goosing themselves over it. But I think people kind of have, tempered expectations, slowed their roll a little bit, and realized it's all a part of a process plan. Hearing you guys talk about it, at least, and listening to y'all, it's like, okay, yes, Arch is exciting. Yes, he's going to be good, but there's no need to throw him into the fire if we really don't have to, because we have a guy who has all this experience, and we haven't even seen Arch start a game yet. We've seen him, like you're saying, Toss, come in with the lead. Totally different ball game than starting the game, soup to nuts. Yeah. So you're right. We're seeing a matchup.
To go off that point too, like, we've seen so many slow starts from Quinn in his career. Like, like Quinn could be a guy that, comes in second drive and then gets it going better than, for all we know, Arch can be a guy who comes in drive one and has the same experience that Quinn has and starts off slow. So it's such a mentality.
Yeah. 100%. And
he's still so young. He's still so young. He's only in year 2. He's in year 2 in his development under Sark. And with us bringing back Quinn, I'm just under the assumption and the impression that there's no, like y'all said, there's no reason to throw him in earlier than necessary, especially when you have Quinn and you need him for next season. And not that I think he's going to get hurt or anything like that, but confidence is a big deal, and it going into the first year in the SEC, we're seeing a lot of different shit right now. Like, we're seeing a lot of different stuff. So I just feel better about having the experience back there, even though I love what I see from Arch. I'm excited and I can't wait to see what Arch is able to do. But this is Quinn's time. It's Quinn's team. And I just really want to see the fan base rallying around Quinn. That's what I want to see.
What a luxury it is. Nick, you briefly mentioned it, that next week or this coming weekend, we play a home game. Then we have the bye, then another home game. That's so nice for both Arch and Quinn. And I said it was Lafayette earlier in the show. I was wrong. Thank you, Nick, for pointing out that it was Monroe. I just wanted us to play General Booty so bad, who's the quarterback at Louisiana Lafayette. But
no, he's
at Monroe.
He's Monroe.
He is? Well, there you go. Yeah. Now I'm just messing it up all over the place.
You got what you wish for, buddy.
Okay, good. And they're 2-0.
Winning booty matchup.
2-0 against General Booty. So they're 2-0, I'm saying. But no, it's so nice that we get 2 home games where we don't have to deal with Arch going on the road and they don't have to deal with travel, because those small details make a big difference. And just keeping the norm, keeping the consistent schedule that they've had will obviously be beneficial for Arch starting both those games, hypothetically.
Yeah. And it's nothing to take away from the talent of some of the other freshmen we're seeing around college football. Jackson Arnold and Nico Iamaleava they're playing each other this weekend in Norman. That's where College Game Day is, Tennessee versus OU. I think both kids are really talented, but I think some of it's the fan base is hyping themselves up a little bit around these guys, because this is their option. Like, this is what they have. Like, that's their starting quarterback. For the beauty of us, yes, we could hype up Arch all we want, but he's it's a luxury. It's not like we don't have to have him start, hopefully, throughout the rest of the season. So really, really good sentiments across the board.
Knock on wood.
All right. Knock on wood. Yeah. Laci, we'll start with you, Nick, Toss, and I'll close us out. Last thing of the day. We do this once a week. Who are your guys' top 5 right now? Doesn't have to be Texas guys, of course, but top 5 right now in your Heisman ranking.
Okay, so are we just going 1 through 5 individually, or are we going 1 around, 2 around, 3 around? How are we doing?
1 through 5 individually.
Word. So my number 1 right now is Cam Ward. 11 touchdowns, 1 interception, over 1,000 yards in the first 3 games. I just think he makes Miami very dangerous. I think that he is what Miami has been missing over the past couple of seasons. I don't have full faith in Cristobal just yet, but I really, really like what I see from Cam Ward. So he's been my number 1. Number 2, I got Jackson Dart, 8 touchdowns, 1 interception, almost 1,200 yards already. That Ole Miss offense has just been extremely explosive. And, he's made a 20% jump in completion percentage from last year just in the first few games. So I really like what I am seeing from both Lane and Jackson Dart. My number 3 is Quinn Ewers, QE3. Almost 700 yards, 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I feel like this one's pretty self-explanatory. We've talked ad nauseum about Quinn, but one of the best offenses in the league, leads it efficiently, makes it look way too easy. The touch is insane. His anticipation is next level. His accuracy has taken a step up too. And I hope we're able to get him back by Mississippi State so that he can really keep those odds going. Cause I don't know how much that drop off is after, like, once we enter SEC play, if Quinn's not playing, I feel like that just really starts to drop off. But my number 4 is going to be Travis Hunter. just because with what he's able to do on both offense and defense, 5 touchdowns already, 11 total tackles on defense in 2024 already. I just think what he brings to Colorado as a program, he is that engine. He is their motor. He is what makes them able to go. So I just feel like you've got to include him in the conversation as one of the best players in the country. I don't know if Colorado will have enough wins to really back that up, but Travis Hunter is a freaking dog. And my last one is going to be Nico Iamaleava. Almost 700 yards, six touchdowns. Whoa, 6 touchdowns. 2 interceptions. This one may be a little bit more of a long shot, but I like Nico. I really, really like Nico. Bear with me a little bit. I know he's a second-year guy, first-time starter. He started in the bowl game, so I know that he's had a few struggles early on with a few little mental mistakes and just showing that he is a first-time starter in college football. But if Tennessee is able to keep their offense humming the way that they are, and if they're able to keep opposing offenses at bay the way that they have, I think you at least have to be able to have that conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. It's a big test this weekend, too, on the road in Norman. Toss?
OU's a good defense, too.
Yeah.
OU is a good defense. I have a feeling that Tennessee is a more complete team. Like, I think that OU asked Jackson Arnold to do more than Tennessee asked Nico to do. And
well, I feel like he has to. Sorry.
No, exactly. That's why they asked him to do it, because he has to do it. And I think he can get himself into trouble a little bit. He threw that late pick 6 against Tulane, and things almost got really dicey for the Sooner fans. So that is going to be a really fun game. But I do expect Tennessee to win that football game. We'll see what happens, of course. That's why they play. Laci, I think we all might, or at least Nick and I both share the sentiment as who we have number 1 with you. I have Cam Ward 1 as well. I have Jackson Dart. I don't have Jackson Dart 2. I have Jalen Milroe 2. I think what he's doing with his legs will continue, will sustain throughout the entire season. I think he's already he's 8th in rushing touchdowns right now of all ball carriers. I almost said ball handlers there. Now I've done it. We'll go with Jackson Dart at 3. Originally, when Josh and Nick and I had talked about this yesterday, I didn't have Quinn, but we've gotten more information about his injury, and I agree with you. I'll have him in there at 4 because I think if he comes back after missing only 1 week, he is still very much in contention to win the Heisman Award and also get to or just be a Heisman finalist in general. Although I will say he doesn't have the same stats that Ward and Dart have, so he's fighting a little bit of an uphill battle, but he has the win against Michigan, which of course I mentioned already what I feel about that game and how important it was in the larger context of college football this year. And then 5, I have Ashton Jeanty, the running back for the Boise State Broncos.
Yeah, when we did this yesterday, I've changed one from my top 5. So Cam Ward still number 1. Laci, you're spot on. I mean, he's a guy that Miami has needed for a long time now, and I feel like they've thought they've had that, with previous quarterbacks, and you see it, come and go. But Cam Ward, I've told these guys, I thought was the most talented quarterback in the transfer portal, and Miami just landed him, and he's the perfect fit to coincide with the defense that they have going on there. So it makes them a true contender for the ACC and to get in the college football playoff and bring Miami football back. Number 2, this is where I flipped. So yesterday I had Quinn. Today I have Jackson Dart. Looking deeper into Jackson Dart's stats and, seeing the progression that he's made from this year to last year. Obviously, Ole Miss is right there with us right now, tops in the SEC and all of college football. And I think, what he's been able to do every week in, week out on a yardage performance and touchdown basis, he's getting some love there at number 2. Number 3, I still have Quinn because I do believe that he's going to come back healthy and win us some big ball games and continue to stay number 1. And if you're the number 1 team in the nation, especially at Texas, and, you're an offense that throws the ball a lot, spreads it out a lot, you're going to be in the mix. And, even though he went down last week, he still had a pretty decent stat line in the time that he did play. So it's not like he, missed all of this entire game where you're missing that game worth of stats. Realistically, If he just misses this week, we have a bye week, then like, then you miss one game. And it's Louisiana Monroe, which was pretty much a useless game anyway for the staff.
That's not a Heisman determining game anyways.
Exactly. So he's my number 3, but he should probably make his way back up to number 2 or 1 soon. Number 4, Jalen Milroe, just the ability to do it both with his legs, with his arm. Obviously, Bama being the number 4 team in the nation, helps a little bit too. But we saw what he did last year. He got stronger and stronger as the season goes on. I believe the same thing's going to happen this year. So he'll be in contention. I believe he's going to have a seat in New York when it's all said and done.
He also doesn't have an interception. So he's
that too.
8-0 touchdown to interception ratio right there. It's pretty.
And
solid.
then number 5, keeping him in the rankings until he proves me otherwise. Ashton Genty obviously didn't play last week because they had a bye, but we're not going to knock a guy for that. I mean, he's just been lighting the world on fire with his legs, rushing for almost 200 yards each game. So love what I'm seeing out of him. And if he continues at this pace, like there's no reason why he's not sitting there in New York as well and being one of the first running backs in a long time to win the Heisman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I same guys, just all scattered around. Really, I have Jalen Milroe number 1 just because of what he's doing on both sides. Maybe because he was my pick going into the season, but I thought what he did going into Wisconsin was pretty impressive the other day. So that's a pretty sizable win for me. I have Quinn too. Again, like Nick, I couldn't agree with you more. The game you're missing is Louisiana Monroe. Like, all right, fine. Like we all agree this is not a Heisman moment. Your Heisman moment comes against OU, comes against Georgia, comes against A&M. Especially if you're the number 1 team in the nation, you're not going to lose. So those are the Heisman moments right there. So I have Quinn too. He still has the most signature one. I think Toss, you said it earlier, like going into Michigan is still the best win of the season. We'll see how good Michigan is this weekend against USC when they host them. If they beat USC, who everyone presumes to be a good team, who's already beaten LSU, who's a solid team, then that Michigan win looks even better. So Quinn goes into Michigan's house and really dominates. So he's my number 2. 3, Cam Ward. Don't buy Florida at all. Think they kind of stink on ice, but it's still going into the swamp. And his numbers are great. And I think the thing with Milroe and Ward that have really impressed me, Ward, brand new team, Milroe, brand new offensive minded head coach. So things are changing all around these guys and they're still performing at a high level. Jackson Dart, obviously the stats are there and we know what this offense can do, but they haven't played anybody. I mean, at Wake Forest, I guess, but that's akin to Colorado State to me, quite frankly. So he's just putting up, he's just stat padding on these mediocre teams. He plays Georgia Southern this weekend. So again, really impressive, but we'll see what he does. And then Ashton Genty. I think Ashton Genty is the guy that'll continue to climb. He had a bye this week, but I think that Boise State team has an easier schedule as it goes on, and their toughest game was against Oregon. They barely lost, and he absolutely balled out, almost rushing for 200 yards. So in what was supposed to be his signature game, he did what was expected, and if he could put on the numbers as the season goes, again, it's not against SEC, so he's really going to have to go for 140 plus, 150 plus every single game, but if he does that, he'll find his way to New York. Laci, thank you so much for joining us. It was great having you on this morning. We appreciate you. We love the content you're putting out for Texas and your involvement there. Tell everyone where they could find you.
Yeah, for sure. I'm over on Twitter at Hook'emLaci, XOXO. I have a lot of fun over there. You can also find me on YouTube. I'm over on YouTube at Laced Up X Podcast. I go live every single Monday night with Inside Texas coach Charlie Williams. And we go live every single Monday, 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're going to be over on that channel a lot more. And just find me on Twitter. Those are my go-to.
Nice.
Love it.
Nice. Love it. Laci, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you on here again soon. Fisher to Southwest DJ, Nikki Snacks Crider, everyone out there. Hook 'em horns.
Thank y'all. Hook 'em.
We'll see you. Hook 'em. We'll see you another time.